morning. But my name is Scott Augenbaum. I recently retired from the FBI after 30 years with the FBI. Retired last year, and if you would have told me back in 1988 that I would be retired from the FBI talking about cybercrime, I would have said, not my life. I grew up in New York City, graduated community college with a whopping 2.28 grade point average, and I always like to joke when you graduate with community college with a 2.2, the world really isn't knocking down your doors, but luckily the federal government, as I always like to say, opens up its arms, takes us less fortunate individuals in. And I started when I was 20 years old. Went back to school at night, finished a bachelor's degree, started working on an MBA in finance and technology. Became an FBI agent when I was 26 years old, 1994. I was assigned to the Syracuse, New York office. And if you would ask me to define the role of an FBI agent in 1994, I would say it was really easy to describe. There were bad people who were doing bad things to good people in my area of responsibility. And my job was to put bad guys in jail. What a fun and exciting job for a 26-year-old kid right out of New York City. But if you'd asked me to describe it, what were we doing back then? We were doing bank robberies. We were doing fugitive cases. We were doing drug cases. It was all this testosterone-driven stuff, which I joined the FBI for. I remember getting called out on an arson investigation at 2 o'clock in the morning one Friday night, not coming home for almost 2 days, not sleeping off of that. It was so much fun. I didn't join the FBI to do cybercrime investigations. As I got older, and just to fast forward, I spent 3 years in Washington, D.C. in the cyber division of the FBI, where I was handling a lot of policy issues. I came to Nashville in 2006 as our first cybercrime supervisor, spent 12 years here. I retired last year, and I went around the country and I spoke. And my passion was teaching people what I've learned in my career within the FBI. And I have a very unique perspective on this. I look at things completely different because, unfortunately, in my world, I've dealt with thousands and thousands of victims. And what I try to do is take what I've learned from my victimizations and apply them to the audience, and to be able to take it so the audience can learn situations, can learn from it. Now, the fortunate part about it is you give me a group, I can tell you stories, I can tell victimizations. Dental, I think I can break it down I got probably about 6 hours worth of dental stories here. And let's just get a couple of the facts straight when it comes to cybercrime. Cybercrime is a $3 trillion problem. $3 trillion, we can't even wrap our hands around what exactly does $3 trillion mean. But think about this, in the next 5 years, the problem is going to go from a $3 trillion problem until going to go up to a $6 trillion problem. So for anyone out here doing math, what are we talking about? We're talking about a 100% increase in the crime problem. And that's a pretty scary number. But let me tell you a little bit about what scares me even more. Today, we spend $88 billion on trying to keep our information safe. And what are we spending money on? We're spending money on firewalls. We're spending money on intrusion detection systems. We're becoming HIPAA and PCI compliant. But in the next 5 years, the crime problem is going to go up to a $1 trillion problem. So let that sink in for a second. So the problem today is a $3 trillion problem. It's going up to $6 trillion. And we're going to spend 1,200% more to keep ourselves safe. What does that mean? I can tell you, if I even asked my 14-year-old what it meant, who's learning inverse relationships in math, it means we're not doing it right. So what I want to try to share with you today is the lessons that I've learned apply them to situations that I dealt with, especially in the healthcare community, and try to drill down even a little bit deeper into the dental community, because I had victims that were dentists. And what I want to do is kind of show you the elements that I've dealt with in almost every one of my investigations. And there are 4 major elements in each one of my cases. The first one was nobody ever expected to be a victim. Think about that. Nobody, I mean, we don't think we're going to be a cybercrime victim. A lot of times I hear this all the time. I'm not a big company. I don't have a lot of records. I'm a nonprofit organization. I'm a homeowner. I'm a church. Remember this point. The bad guys do not care who you are. They care about the information that you have. They care about getting their hands onto that information. I would deal with this with healthcare companies in Nashville. Nashville is a Silicon Valley for the healthcare industry. We have 260 healthcare companies, and most of them would tell me, I'm not as big as HCA or Community Health Systems. I only have 75,000 records. And I'd be like, stop and think about that. Only 75,000 records. Or even think about it on the smaller organizations. I would hear this from publicly traded companies. They would say, I'm not a publicly traded company. Or they would say, I'm on the NASDAQ, and the bad guys are only targeting organizations that are on the New York Stock Exchange. And I just laugh. I'm like, the bad guys do not care who you are. They care about the information that you have. And we all have information that we want to have access to. Every organization has sensitive customer information. Even you guys as associations, what do you have? You have the names, addresses, telephone numbers of your clients. You have access to bank account information. If you happen to be a dental office, what else do you have? You have patient information. We have payroll. We're going to talk a lot about email because email is the attack vector. And let me ask you guys, or someone here, think about it in your associations. What do you have access to if the bad guys steal would make your lives miserable? But I want you to answer me this, and if we need someone so we'll continue the conversation. What do you guys have on your home computers if the bad guys stole would cause you grief? That's a question.
Online banking passwords, email passwords, all kinds of passwords and logins for different things. Everything is online now.
Okay, good answer.
Returns.
No, hey, listen, if you ever do public speaking and you want to stop and you want a drink and you want to chill, just ask questions. It doesn't matter if anyone answers the question, but it's always a good thing. But I appreciate you doing that. But yeah, now here, and I want you to think, you don't even have to call out there. Think about what's the most important piece of sensitive information that you have in your personal life. Think about what it is in your work life. Maybe think about it as those pictures you took. Never mind, we're not going to talk about that now. But I want you to think about this one point. When the bad guys steal your information and you contact law enforcement, the chances of law enforcement getting your stuff back, I hate to say it, is slim and none. You know, they steal your car, maybe you'll get it back. But when your information is stolen, we do not get information back. And one time I was challenged about that, and someone said, how can you say that? And all I said was, Office of Personnel Management, 21.5 million records stolen. Anthem Healthcare, 87 million records. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Target, JP Morgan, Sony, Equifax, you name it, it's all been stolen. Let me ask you, can we get that information back? Absolutely not. We're going to talk about the business email compromise, a $15 billion a year scam perpetrated by our friends over in West Africa. The chances of us getting that money back, I would say in my career in Nashville, I've been involved with probably $100 million worth of losses And I've been successful in getting back 4 wire transfers. If I was a Major League Baseball team, my record would probably been, over a lifetime, would probably be 4 wins, 17,000 losses. You know, that's not a very good record. And I'm sure everyone here is familiar with ransomware. If not, I'll give you a quick overview and you can apply it to your own life, in your associations. You go in one day and you try to access your information. And all of a sudden a screen pops up and it says, "Hi, my name is Yuri. I'm from the Balkans. Unless you pay me $750, you are not going to get your stuff back." You go to check on the other computers in the organization. They're all locked down.
I don't have it's on my speakerphone. It's not on microphone.
I think someone needs to go on mute. What we need to do at this point, besides putting yourself on mute, is that I need to get back on my train of thought. I think I might just have a drink and see where the heck I was. So picture this. You get that email. You try to access your information. You can't access your information. You call on your outsourced IT guy. He says to you, he can't access it. You call in another person, they charge you money, you contact us. I would get calls every single day from organizations. And I had one from a dental organization who called me up and they had ransomware on their stuff. And the big mystery was, what do we pay the ransom or do we not pay the ransom? And I would always go like this, it kind of depends. And I would tell people, listen, you have nothing in the world to worry about unless you have a good backup in place. And then whenever I would make that comment to people, I'd put the phone away from my ear, I'd count to 3. After I got to 3 and there was dead silence on the phone, what do you think that meant? No backup. Let me ask you guys out there now in your associations, how long, or even think about your clients who you represent, how long can an organization survive without access to your information? I need an answer because this way it makes me feel better that I'm talking to someone. I love uncomfortable silence, guys. No one's going to play with me. How long can your organization survive without access to your information? The answer. Oh, come on, Andrew, don't say people. You know that. An organization cannot survive without access to their information. Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Not long at all. And that's the whole point. And we always talk about, you know, backing up our information, but there was a situation involved with a dental firm in New York where they were doing almost every single thing right. They backed up their information. They got an email. They got ransomware on their network from someone by the name of Dark Overlord. It's never a good day when you get an email from Dark Overlord asking you for something. And Dark Overlord said, hey, I have all your information encrypted. And unless you pay me $6,000 in Bitcoins, you're not getting your stuff back. They had a really good system administrator. He had everything back up and restored. And he told Dark Overlord, go pound sand. Well, Dark Overlord sent them an email back with a link to a Payspin account and said, I have copied all of your patient files and I took the liberty to index them with your patients that had sexually transmitted diseases, and those are the top 175. Not a good day for an organization when that happens. So that's really what's important here to realize. When the bad guys are doing these bad things to you, it's hard to contact law enforcement to get this stuff back, which brings me to my next point. The chances of us putting the bad guys in jail are very, very challenging. Why is that? Because the bad guys are located overseas. They're located over in Eastern Europe. They're located over in China. They're located over in West Africa with the business email compromise. So putting bad guys in jail, very, very challenging. So usually these are the points in my presentations where people start getting depressed, because let's think about what you learned so far. Bad guys get your stuff. It's nobody's getting it back. The chances of us putting the bad guys in jail are really slim to none. And now's the point where you go like this: why the heck would I ever want to bring this guy in to speak to my organization? Because he's a barrel of laughs. So let me explain to you the fourth point, which is probably the most key point that I've learned in my career. And this is one that I want you to write down. Almost 90% of what I've dealt with in my career, and the numbers are higher for smaller businesses, could have been prevented with really three basic things: user education and awareness, good defined business policies, and locking down remote access with something called two-factor authentication. Can someone send me a signal? Is anyone here using two-factor authentication on their email? Two-factor authentication is something else besides a username and password. Someone send me a smoke screen, a signal. If no one's using it, I will just assume that no one is using it. Don't know what that is even available. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, good. We're going to talk about that, because that is one of the things that my victims all had in common. They didn't know what two-factor authentication is. And don't even worry about it, because I'm going to show you how to set it up. And I'm going to make sure today that you leave and you're going to be able to set this up on your home email. And then from there, we'll take it on to your organizations and everything. And I can walk you through this whole thing, because this is what the bad guys those three elements did not exist. So let's think about the most common thing here. What does the bad guy need to steal from your life in order to make your life miserable? I'm getting used to people answering me. So tell me, what is the one thing, what's that one piece of information a cyber criminal needs to steal from you? It's not your username. It's not your password. Oh, it is your password. I gave it away. All right. Now, not your social security number. Mine's been stolen a lot of times. Your password. Because think about it. What can the bad guy do if he steals your username and password for your bank account? He can empty it out. What can the bad guy do if he steals your username and password for your payroll account? He gets access to that. You just think about whatever you have a username and password. So let's just say that you happen to be a dental associate, and you happen to be a large one. What do you think happens if the bad guy steals your username and password and he sends an email out to all of your clients and tells them, hey, you need to click on a link? What do you think your clients do? They have some trust that exists between you. So everybody here is familiar with the days of phishing. What is phishing? Bad guy sends an email out. It looks like it's coming from your bank. It says, dear bank customer, your account is about to be locked out unless you provide your username, password, high school locker combination. And today, most people will know not about that information. Could I teach that to my 16-year-old? Maybe if I take him out to dinner, take away his Beats headphones and make him listen to me for 30 minutes, maybe he will get that. But I want to ask you this other question. What do you think is going to happen if my 83-year-old mother gets that email? Do you think she's going to fall for it? Probably. If you ever meet my mom, don't tell her about the internet, because I've kept her in the dark, because all of my friends' parents have all been ripped off. But let me explain phishing 2.0 to you. Imagine this. Right now, you get an email from your bank, and it's addressed to you by name. It says, dear bank customer, we want to let you know that we've installed a new security algorithm on your machine. Whatever that means, I have no idea, but it sounds pretty good. And this morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, someone attempted to log into your bank account from an IP address in Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Brooklyn. If that ever happens, it's never a good situation. someone attempts to log into your bank account and they attempt to either ACH transfer $1,850, or if it's your credit card, they make an $1,850 purchase from your card, and your bank is sending you an email saying that this is a suspicious transaction. Let me ask anyone, what goes through your mind if you get an email from your bank and it says that? Send me a message. What are some of the thoughts that go through your head? No thoughts at all? Come on, guys. What happens? We get sucked in, we get concerned a little bit, but here is, yeah, it could be bogus, but here's the next one, John. I want to ask about that. Now I have to take time to call. Okay, hold on. Here's the next line in the email. The next line of the email says, we believe this is a fraud. However, if this is not a fraud, ignore the email and the $1,850 will go out of your account. How do you feel now? It makes you feel a little nervous because that's what the bad guys are trying to do. They're trying to get us to react to an email. And now the third step is the Jedi mind trick. If this is a fraud, you don't have to do anything at all. The money will go out of your account in 90 minutes. If this is a fraud, please click on the link or call the 1-800 number. What's the majority of the population going to do? Call. So when you call that, click on the link. So what they do is they call and for the people here who say, but I usually get this look, what does this guy think? I'm dumb? I'm not going to click on the link. I'm going to call the 1-800 number. And when you call that 1-800 number, you will get the only English speaker in Latvia who's going to tell you it's real. Just click on the link, and then you are going to click on the link. And you know what happens when you click on the link? You're going to enter in your username, and you're going to enter in your password, and now the bad guy is going to get remote access to your machine. Because think about this. What ends up happening here, we give them access to that. We give them access to our information, our bank account information. So now bad guy overseas has access to your bank account information. He logs in remotely. The bank will not let you log in remotely. And at this point, the bank will issue, it notices this, so it'll send a series of challenge questions. Everybody here familiar with some of the challenge questions that the bank issues? Let me see. Someone type in a couple of challenge questions. What are typical challenge questions? And my neck's killing me, so it gives me a second to stretch my neck. All right, mother's maiden name, name of your first pet, high school mascot, when did you grow up? Let me ask you, think about what you just put down. How much of that information is on your social media platforms? People ask me when Sarah Palin's account got hacked, because that was in Tennessee, her account didn't get hacked. They reset her password. How did they reset her password? High school name and high school mascot. If you live in Wasilla, Alaska, how many high schools do you think are out there? That is why, as I try to teach my kids, we don't lie in life. We only lie when it comes to bank challenge questions. They don't have to be accurate, but if they are easily able to be guessed, we are in trouble. So let me explain to you a typical corporate breach. This is how it's going to impact you. This is how it's going to impact your clients. True story. I have a CEO of an organization, gets an email from somebody he knows and somebody he trusts. Remember, you're not going to get an email from Boris Badnoff at cybercrime.exe. That email is going to be an email from Amazon saying that your package has been delayed in shipping. Or it's going to be UPS or DHL or your credit card or the bank or somebody you know and somebody you trust. In this situation, the CEO gets an email from a contact of his with a PDF file in it, and it says, please review this contract as we talked about before. Legitimate email, these things happen all the time. The company has an intrusion detection system. When the executive clicks on the email, there's no malware at all. It turns into something called a web, it's an HTML file, and it goes in and and a screen pops up and it says, you have a very important DocuSign document. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with DocuSign documents. He reads through the document and it says, it talks a little bit about the conversation, and it says, in order to open this DocuSign document, you need to provide your Microsoft 365 credentials to open up this document. Let me ask you guys, true or false, do we need to authenticate with Microsoft 365 credentials to open up a DocuSign document? It's kind of a trick question here because today I had to open up my Dropbox and I had to use my Gmail credentials. But let me ask you guys, do we need to authenticate with Microsoft 365? No, no. But let me ask you another question. Does everyone in your organization know that? Do all of your clients know that? Of course not. In this situation, he didn't know this at all. So he enters in his Microsoft 365 credentials. Okay. At that point in time, it says that did not work. Please enter in your Gmail credentials. You guys want to guess what he did? Entered in his Gmail credentials. That didn't work. Then what did he do? He enters in his iPhone credentials. None of that works. He picks up the phone to call the executive and say, hey, what's going on? But the executive's been out of the office for 2 weeks, so he gets kind of a little concerned. How did I find out about this? I got an email from this guy because I knew him. But what we didn't see behind the scenes is every time he entered in his credentials to his bank account information, they were sent to a 17-year-old in West Africa who has no IT background at all. And that 17-year-old was able to steal his username and password. So now using two-factor authentication, which is the second form of authentication, which I am going to show you how to set up on your personal stuff. That's really, really easy. What do you think the bad guy was able to do by gaining access to his username and password? Come on, Teresa. I'm used to you answering my questions. I'm waiting for you. He logs in remotely. No, we're not at the social security number yet. If he just stole the social security number, it would be easy. Just think about this. If the bad guys get access to your email account for your association or your clients, what do? They get access to that. And unfortunately, what are most organizations hooked up to? Oh, it's going to get worse. OneDrive. What do you think the average law firm keeps in a OneDrive? Legal records. What do you think a CPA keeps in his OneDrive? Financial records. What do you think an association keeps in their OneDrive? Client records. And what do you think a dentist office does? Patient files. Congratulations, that's today's data breach. 5, 6, or 7 figures to be able to respond to that and mitigate that. And it didn't have to happen. But now it gets worse because I want everyone here to picture this. All of a sudden, bad guys get into your personal email account and they send that same identical email out from your account to everyone on your client list. And it says, you have a DocuSign document. How many of your clients are going to fall for that? Probably most of them. And now, congratulations, you have all infected your clients, and now disaster starts to do. I mean, it sounds hopeless, but I'm going to explain to you how you set that up. That does not have to happen. That is, the traditional data breach. I do a lot of work with intrusion response companies. 85% of today's data breaches take place because somebody did not keep their username and password secure. But it's not that simple because, well, it is simple, but it's not. One of the biggest problems that we have today is password reuse. People are using the same password for multiple platforms. Everybody here familiar with the fact that the Russian organized crime got into 3 billion Facebook users, stole 3 billion Facebook usernames and passwords? Well, Marriott was just taken, and that's another 500 million. So if anyone remembers, does anyone remember what did Facebook and Marriott tell us to do after the data breach? So this is why I hate webinars. It's so hard for me to focus. They told everybody to, yes, Janet, change your password. So let's just assume for this example, all 3.5 million Facebook users and Marriott users changed their usernames and passwords. Out of those 3.5 billion users, and this is going to be a question, okay? Out of those 3.5 billion users, what percentage do you think happen to either have an iPad, an Apple, or a Mac computer? Out of 3.5 million Facebook users, 80%. Okay, that's good. Anyone else got a number for me? 90%. Let's just say for this example, let's just go 10%. You know, Teresa, it's probably maybe 30, but I don't know. Let's go 10%. Let's even go lower than that. Let's go 5%. Anyone want to tell me quickly what's 5% of 3.5 billion? Besides a lot? I mean, that's like what? 175 million users just for this subset. So let's just assume for this example, there are 175 million iPad, iPhone, Apple users out of that set of data breaches. Well, you know what they all have in common? 60 to 70%. Well, I can guarantee you right now that 99% of those individuals are saying, I have a Mac. Macs don't get viruses. So I got good news for you. Macs don't get viruses. Anyone believe me? I get a yes, a no, maybe. Macs don't get viruses? No. I used to say, no, nobody's hacking Macs anymore. You want to know why? 60 to 70% of the population is using the same password for multiple platforms. And out of that, 60 to 70%, bad guy, just think about this. What can the bad guy do? Now they have this list of usernames and passwords. Let's just assume that they all change their usernames and passwords. What percentage of those users have the same username and password for their bank account? And what happens when they get into your iCloud account for my Apple users? They get every single document on your iCloud. Think about that. Think about what percentage of the population is using the same password for multiple platforms. That is why you cannot have the same password for multiple platforms. And you need to identify your mission critical passwords. Hey, let me get anyone respond to me. Anyone feeling a little overwhelmed right now with all the information I'm throwing at you? I'm waiting for the responses. Because I'd like to hear, is this a lot of stuff? Is anyone concerned? Okay. No. This is the whole point, because now this is it. I mean, these are the main real points. We can't have the same password for multiple platforms. The first most important thing we need to do is we need to become a human firewall. We need to think before we click. We need to think before we act. Very, very important. I see the bad guys get in from one password, they get into all of the other passwords for all of the other platforms, and it's kind of game over. I had one medical professional They got access to her Facebook account. From her Facebook account, they got into her email account. From the email account, they got into the bank account, and they were able to wire transfer out the money. I tracked the bad guy down to a country in Eastern Asia, and we had no legal recourse whatsoever. And they were amazed how this happened, and it really could have been prevented so easily. So let's talk about good passwords and bad passwords. You know, a good password, my son Aiden was born in 2002 and Quinn was born in 2005. Do you think I ever used those passwords before? Of course I did. They were easy to remember. And that's why, and I used to say I had 2 passwords, not just 1 password, but now that will not cut it. A good password for your personal stuff should be 12 characters in length, uppercase, lowercase, special symbol, and a number, and you need one for your mission critical account. So what's mission critical? You don't want the bad guys into your email account, because if they're in your email account, they're going to read all of your emails. I've seen this happen to Fortune 500 companies. Bad guy gets access to an unsecured email, which is without 2-factor authentication. He reads all the emails, and then he sees every single thing that the CEO is doing, and he sends an email from the CEO to the CFO asking the CFO to make a wire transfer. Unfortunately, what does the CFO do when they get an email from the boss? They do it. The largest one that I have seen was $7.5 million. And one of the ones that I had happen to a dental executive was $110,000. Had nothing to do with being anyone except it was a dental executive. Got an email from her broker. The bad guys got in. The broker sent her an email, but it didn't come from the broker. That's why we have to be on our guard. So a good password should be 12 characters in length, uppercase, lowercase, special symbol, and a number. No dictionary words, and now's the time when you're probably going, how the heck does he expect me to do this? Well, I'm going to teach you towards the end. I'm going to show you something really simple to be able to change all of your passwords. But you have to remember that if the bad guys are able to get 1 password, are they going to get into all of your passwords in your life? And think about it in your organization. What are the ones that you have? What's mission critical in the organization? The payroll, anything that we store information in the cloud is mission critical. Anything that we use to communicate, our cell phone providers are mission critical. If the bad guys get access to your Verizon or AT&T account, because you have a simple password, they can reroute all of your calls. The last important thing, and then we're going to open it up, I'm going to make it a little interactive here, is this thing you've heard me talk about so much, which is 2-factor authentication. 2-factor authentication is a second form of authentication besides a username and password. Think about it as, yes, I'm going to answer every question over here. And then when you see me squint, it's because I don't have my glasses on to read the small print over here. Yeah, but the second form of authentication is usually sent to you in a text message. And it's a random 6-digit code. So, and I'm going to show you, we're going to walk through this. We're going to do this nice and slow so you're going to understand it and really be able to do it. For your personal email, you need to have an email that is secure. Now, you can have one of these emails. There are 3 choices, in my opinion, for good emails: Gmail, Outlook, and iCloud. If you're still using Yahoo, you're out of your mind. If you're still using AOL, it means unsophisticated user. Those 3 platforms are great. They have great security settings, and they're really, really easy. So when you go to your Gmail account, or you go to your Outlook account, or if you go to your iCloud account, you're going to look for something which is known as 2-factor or multi two-factor authentication. And you're just going to check a box. You're going to say, I'd like to enable. Then it's going to ask you to do something you're probably not going to want to do. It's going to ask you for your cell phone number. And in order for this to work, you're going to have to put your cell phone number in. So at this point, you put your cell phone number in, you hit OK, it's going to log you off of the platform. You're going to log back in, and then you're going to enter your username, you're going to enter your password, and then it's going to ask you for your random 6-digit code. And right now, you will get a 6-digit text message sent to you on your cell phone. That's the second form of authentication. You're going to enter it in to the screen, which is going to show up either on your computer or your smartphone. And then it's going to say, would you like to remember this device? You are going to say, yes, I would. At that point, this device is registered with the platform. And it will, anytime you log in from that device. So if you do it on your computer, the next time you log into your cell phone is not going to be a secure device, but it's going to ask you for the code. The code's going to come to you. It is completely set up. When is this a pain? When I go to my sister and I log in and I want to get a recipe off my Google Drive, and then I don't have my phone with me. Now I can't get in. Is that a pain? Yeah, kind of, but is my life over? Absolutely not. So I want everyone here to think about this a second, because why did we do this? We have done this to prevent bad guys from getting access to our email, our financial accounts, our social media accounts. I'm going to send you some collaterals that will show you how you can set this up. And so I want you to think about this right now. You have just done this on your Gmail account. And right now, during the middle of this webinar, you get a random 6-digit text message from Gmail sent to you, but you are not logged into Gmail. What happened? What just happened right now to cause you to get that text message? There must be a delay in the messaging. What has just caused you to get that? Someone else just logged in. That's right. How did they get your password? Well, you guys got another 30 minutes. I can bore you to death. It doesn't matter how they got your password. It matters that the fact that you had two-factor authentication prevented the bad guys from getting onto your system. 3 weeks ago, my wife, Maureen, comes running to me the other day going, honey, I just got a 6-digit text message from Uber, but I'm not logged in. Uber has that kind of protection. And you know what I said to her? Very calmly, I went like this, honey, somebody hacked your account. And she said, do I have anything to worry about? I go, as long as you don't use that same password for another account. That's when she ran upstairs, because she realized that she was using that password for something else. Had the bad guys get access to it? Who knows? But let's kind of recap over here. We need to think before we click. We need to become a human firewall. We need to think before we act, especially when someone changes payment and vendor invoice on our invoices. Do we have policies in place to prevent that from happening? We need to make sure that we have separate passwords for our mission critical accounts. We need to identify that. That's your homework tonight, guys and ladies. Find out what accounts you have within your life, change those passwords, and get the second factor of authentication in on that. Those 4 or 5 things that I just talked about really prevents about 85% of having bad things from happening. Let me ask you right now, before I continue, how much money does anyone need to spend right now to go out to prevent themselves from being a victim? Did I talk about having to buy anything at all? Nothing at all. And so, and that's why, you know, I wrote this book, The Secret to Cybersecurity, where I've kind of taken this as a playbook and I've broken it down specifically into chapters to go through this, or else I would be doing 11-hour presentations on this topic. And since there's only 20 people on this today, what I'm going to have everybody do, and we want to see how many people actually take me up on this. If you go to my website, which is www.scottaugenbaum.com, just enter in your information and send me an email, and I'm going to send you a book. Because I know you're going to love the book, and I know you're going to want to buy one for all of your members or have me speak about this. Because right now, and just, you know, the topics that I'm covering in the book, I like to joke, it's the first book about computer crime without mentions of the computer, because we're talking about thinking before you click, password safety. I'm showing you how to set up those secure passwords and how you can do it within 3 minutes just by coming up a very, very simple system. And we're also talking about protecting yourself against ransomware, but at the same time, keeping your kids safe and keeping your parents safe, and going into so much detail. Because, you know, really big breaches in my career, I didn't really lose a lot of sleep over them. You know why? Because I dealt with so many situations that occurred to small businesses, to nonprofits, to homeowners, and it broke my heart that I couldn't get their stuff back for them. I couldn't put the bad guys in jail. And it really was not a very good time and place after someone just lost $110,000 for me to sit down and say, hey, that didn't have to happen. And that's why I wrote this book, in order to get in front of as many people as humanly possible to keep that message safe. It's available now on Amazon. If you shoot me that email, I'll send you a book. I'll talk to you about coming out and speaking to your organization and selling the book at wholesale. But this is my passion. This is what I love to do, because I want to take what I've learned in my years within the FBI and teach people how not to be the victim, and by doing the basics and fundamentals first. Now, I've thrown a lot of information out at you, and I want to, you know, you can unmute your phone and we can take the next 10 minutes and I can answer any questions that you have. And I know I did a horrible job if I get no questions. How about the password apps? You know, I just got a question about that the other day. I didn't really include that in my book. I mean, there are some good ones that are out there, but if you're not using two-factor authentication, if the bad guy steals your password for your password app, then he can get into it. I've come up with a simple system that I use. I have about 25 separate mission-critical passwords, and I have a system where I use numbers and I use phrases, and I have a system where I write them down, and that is in my book. Because think about that, I'm not going to be able to teach my spouse or my mom how to use a password manager. And think about that, will you be able to teach your clients to be able to use that? So there are some good ones. What I don't want you to do is go out and download the free one. And I've seen a healthcare company download a free app that was written by someone in the Russian Federation, and now that is managing their entire infrastructure. If you're an IT professional and you have 300 routers, then it's a little more challenging, but you really want to make sure you're using a reputable product. Any other questions?
Quick question, Scott. How can you tell the difference between a phishing attempt where it's not real, they're just trying to get you to send them money, and where they could really do you some damage? Is there any way you can tell the difference in the email?
Well, the emails are getting so good that they look really professional, but this is what kind of concerns me. And there's a lot of products out there that do some jobs. I had one company, they were a $3 billion company. They didn't secure their email with two-factor authentication. The bad guy got into their email, read all of the internal emails within the company, and the bad guy was logging in as the president to the CFO. So if we're not going to put policies in place that we're not going to ask for sensitive information, that's why when I talk to companies and they tell me they got firewalls, they got intrusion detection systems, if the email is not secured, the bad guy won't get in. And let's say you secure your email. Your third parties will not secure their email. So I had another case that I talk about in the book where the bad guy was able to compromise the third party's email account. The third party sent a legitimate bill to this one organization. The organization was about to pay the bill. So just picture this. What is your accounts payable person going to do when they get an email to your organization and it says, please pay this bill? And then 10 minutes later, they get an identical email that comes in and says, hey, we overcharged you. Please pay this lesser amount. Are you training your employees that whenever there's a change in vendor or payment information, are they picking up the phone and calling? And the short answer is no. And that's why we have to realize so little sophistication is required to pull these schemes off. So in my opinion, training the end user, because even if you do buy these technology products, buying products without training really does not work. And I hope that answered your question. But if not, shoot me, send me your information, when you are on line for me to send you a book. If you have any other questions, I have other collateral information.